We know that, in 2025 to 2026, there was a big drop of the US dollar. It's something like 10%. And I think many people are asking themselves, what does that mean? A weaker dollar makes US exports cheaper, but imports more expensive, which can contribute to a higher price on foreign goods. But Michael, how are the current US political strategies shaping the future of American capitalism and inequality?
I think it's a fantasy that a weaker dollar will help the overall economy. Uh, for one thing, yes, they would make industrial exports more competitive with other countries if we had industrial products to export, but we don't. So, what are the exports that? What are they going to make less costly for foreigners? Well, agriculture and oil. Raw materials are the major exports, military equipment. Most American exports are not price competitive. They're what they are, and the value or the exchange rate, I won't say value, but the exchange rate of the US dollar doesn't really affect. But when the dollar goes down, that means that foreign investment in the United States shows a loss when you evaluate it in the currencies of European countries or Asian countries. And so any investment they make here, they value in euros or RMB or whatever. And a falling dollar means that foreign investors take a write down in the capital value of their assets, and that includes bond holdings. So if the dollar goes down, and it went down yesterday, it's going down today. It's just above 94 percent of what it was before. That means that even if the United States raises its interest rate, the interest that you gain is more than wiped out by the decline in the exchange rate of the dollar, especially against the euro, which has been happening, also against the Chinese currency and other currencies, and especially against gold or silver or other raw materials that are denominated in prices other than dollars. So while Trump says, well, a lower dollar is going to help induce foreign investors to invest in the United States, the reality is just the opposite. A falling dollar penalizes foreign investment, and it doesn't really help U.S. exporters because we don't have that much to export. And what we're trying to do is price the non-raw materials exports, namely information technology and social media platforms and the big Silicon Valley companies as a monopoly, and monopoly rents are independent of the exchange rate. So essentially, there is Trump is using junk economics.
Let me just add a little bit to what Michael has said. The single most important value that was supposed to accrue to the American economy from the tariffs, if you remember, was to reverse the long historical decline of manufacturing as a share of the total U.S. economy and reshore, if I remember the clever phrase, reshore American enterprises. The image, remember, Mr. Trump appeared in photo opportunities with a bicycle company in the Midwest and Harley Davidson motorcycles, if I remember, and they were going to bring their factories back to the United States. Well, I looked at a simple statistic: manufacturing exports from the United States over the year that we've had Mr. Trump president in his second term. And the statistic is a decline of 70,000 manufacturing jobs. I mean, this is off the chart. In other words, not only did he not get the great boom, he couldn't even prevent an ongoing, continuing decline from what is already a low base of manufacturing, given everything that has happened before, including in Trump's first presidency. So that is a complete washout. So you have to ask yourself the question, given the incentive that a tariff wall creates, you have to pay the tariff if you're producing abroad and selling in the US, and you avoid having to pay it if you move your production instead inside the United States. So clearly, what must have happened is that other factors overwhelmed whatever the benefit of the tariffs was. And the minute you understand that there's always many things going on, it becomes very easy to identify what some of the other ones must have been. So one of them is the decline of the dollar. Why would you move into a place if any part of your production would be in the present or the future exports? You're exporting from a declining currency. That's a losing proposition. Whatever else your profit calculation is, you have to reduce it by whatever your guess is about your declining currency, the way Michael said. But let me add a couple more. During the last year, you watched the President of the United States deploy armies, ICE armies, in successive US cities, producing massive upheaval and tension and conflict. What business CEO in his right mind would want to invest in a place where this is going on and where the president promises to send ICE into many more urban areas in the months and years ahead? And the mayors and governors in many of those areas are promising to fight against. And the model for everybody now is Minneapolis and Minnesota. And they announced today that they're withdrawing from all Minnesota. You know, they were so badly hurt by the unbelievable success of Minneapolis and the pushback across that state. So you're looking at turmoil and trouble. And then finally, the endless uncertainty. Over this last week, at least the most dramatic for me were the back and forth between the United States and Canada. The most peaceful, long-running partner of the United States with a, you know, what is it, a 3,000-mile border that has no armament on it, has no real barriers, and they threaten each other's with this is not. So the tariff goes up one day, then it goes down. Even if you believed in the ability of Mr. Trump to impose tariffs, we also had a vote in the Congress of the House of Representatives in which enough Republicans switched sides. They voted against giving him tariff authority in the case of Canada of the sort he wanted. And he's now threatening them in their political careers. So the uncertainty, which every CEO I've ever talked to says to you, that uncertainty is as big a factor in their investment location decisions as anything else. Well, Mr. Trump has brought them tremendous uncertainty of all kinds, and therefore they're not going to undertake. Let's remember, moving your production from China to Cincinnati or from Sao Paulo to California, it takes time, costs a ton of money, and is very dislocating of whatever your company is doing. You have to be very confident or desperate to undertake. Under these conditions, they're not going to spend the money, take the risk of making a move. And so you see the result that we're not creating jobs at all. That's why he has to be very quiet about that statistic, because it's very hard to spin around 70,000 fewer manufacturing jobs at the end of your first year.
Well, there's a lot of specific anecdotal backup for what you've just said. Mercedes and Volkswagen have said that they've used the word uncertainty, but they're pretty certain that the dynamics that you and I have just discussed are in the U.S. market are not good, and they've been actually investing in China. And you can look at where they're investing, and they say China's more secure. It's a more stable political environment, and especially Taiwan. Taiwan was where Trump said they're going to build this enormous, the most sophisticated computer chip making company in the world, moving to Arizona. And then a few weeks ago, he said Taiwan is going to make 40% of all of its chips in the United States. Taiwan came out with a response saying, no, we are not going to shift 40% to the United States. And in fact, we're having trouble proceeding with the investment that we tried to build this enormous factory in Arizona, because American labor is not as professional as our own labor. And we don't want our Chinese laborers and engineers deported, as America just did with the Korean laborers and engineers down south. And so all of this this foreign investment that Trump has promised from Taiwan, from Japan, 750 billion, Korea, 350 billion, from Germany, they're, I think, 200 or 300 billion. All of this is fictitious. It's not occurring. And this isn't simply uncertainty. They have a pretty clear idea of what's falling apart here. And looking at television, they can be just as certain as you and I are as to what's happening with the American economy.
I was taken by a report I read recently, last week, in fact, that I don't have the details, but it was in a reputable news source, that maybe you guys know, during the past year, 2025, there were official conversations between the board of directors of the Mercedes-Benz Corporation and leading officials here in the United States on the topic that the United States invited Mercedes-Benz to move itself from Germany to the United States, and that this was discussed over a period of time, and Mercedes-Benz decided not to do it. So this would reinforce in a very concrete way what Michael just said. I mean, Mercedes-Benz is as iconic a part of German industrialization as any company. I mean, it's like Siemens or Volkswagen or any of the others. And so they had their chance. They took a look. They were given, I'm sure, inducements of all kinds to do that, and they still didn't come. Wow. That means they were prepared to disappoint the United States. I don't know what the role of the German government was, but given that Merz used to be the head of BlackRock in Germany, he's obviously friendly with Americans, et cetera, they still chose not to, tells you a lot.
Well, Richard, you and I have spent at least 2 sessions with Nima explaining how his tariffs are responsible for this. If cars are made out of steel and aluminum, now imagine a car company from anywhere moving to the United States and having to pay 50% tariffs on the steel that they use, right, and on the aluminum that they use for the cars. that makes the United States the highest cost economy for cars in the entire world because of Trump's tariffs. There's no way to make a profit with that. And if the car companies import auto parts and all of the other things that go into the car that are manufactured, a falling dollar is going to make these parts more expensive in dollar terms. So the dollar investment of these car companies in the United States is going to not make profits. So Trump has set it up. So I want you to move to the United States. You cannot make a profit, but I'm going to really cause chaos in your economy if you don't. I mean, that's the short summary of what's happening.
And by the way, if you look closely at the American automobile industry, it relies in an extraordinarily great way on car parts that are produced outside the United States. It's a major export of Canada, for example. Car parts made in Canada, shipped across to become components. And when Trump over the weekend put a 25, if I got it right, a 25% additional tariff on the Canadians to hamstring their parts export, of course, the collateral damage is that American companies are going to have to either pay the tariff or they can't forego the part. These are not minor parts. These are things like carburetors and basic parts of your components. So they'd have to go to other countries in the spot market to try to replace what they can't afford to get from Canada anymore. And that's going to take time, and that's going to be disruptive, and that's going to cost them at least more than they were paying before.
Well, General Motors yesterday announced that earnings for last year, they lost $1 billion.
Yeah.
That tells you what you need to know.
Excuse me. And Ford is having all kinds of problems and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah. Michael, let me ask you, when it comes to the populist politics, how does the populist politics affect business confidence and the economy, the economic stability?
Well, it all depends what kind of populist politics you're talking about. Classical political economy, in a way, was a populist politics, but that was the populist politics of industrial capitalism. Adam Smith, John Stuart Mill, they wanted to, that was the ideology of industrial capitalism. And the industrial interests wanted to make Britain into a low-priced competitive economy. And the first thing they had to do was prevent the agricultural interests from increasing the price of food by agricultural protectionism and their land rents. And that was the central theme of classical economics. And they said, well, we've got to, even though we industrialists have always wanted to lower wages, and there's always been a class war with labor, we have to extend the vote to workers. And in order to make the House of Commons more powerful than the House of Lords, and we need to do parliamentary reform and clean up the rotten boroughs. So you could say the 19th century of industrial capitalism was, in its time, populist politics. But today, you no longer have industrial capitalists essentially running the economy. So Trump comes out, and the role of a populist politics seems to be words and slogans to representing the vested interests as being in the interest of the population at large. That's what politicians do. They try to depict the interests of the groups that put them in office as gaining votes, or they simply say one thing and do another. And that's the essence of politics. Say one thing, do another, And you can see what Trump is doing with MAGA. Same thing. He's in the Western world, you have industrial capitalism replaced by financial interests, and that's changed the whole concept of populist politics. One populist measure, for instance, Trump claims to be "Make America Great Again," as if it were a populist program. One of the populist new laws was Elizabeth Warren, the Consumer Financial Protection Agency, to prevent cheating by banks, to give depositors and bank customers a fairer shake. Trump has just abolished and paralyzed this agency. Trump's role as a populist is to prevent every democratic protective agency protecting labor, protecting consumers from monopolists. He's the exact opposite of a populist, yet he's won the popular vote. Because what can a populist do when you're supporting with all of your campaign contributions, unpopular policies? Well, you really have nothing to offer. So instead of accentuating the positive, all they can do is accentuate hatred. Trump says, well, it's true that I'm going to lower living standards, but look at the bright side. I'm fighting non-white people. Look at what I'm doing to the Hispanics. Look at what I'm doing to the blacks. I'm supporting you, real Americans. That's his populist policy, and it's a divisive policy of economic division and class warfare and ethnic warfare and every kind of warfare against all of the different kinds of political identities that the Democratic Party has tried to create as an alternative to the common identity of people, no matter what ethnicity, what race, of being wage earners. So you've had the whole characteristic of populist policies change. All of this happened back in Greece. Aristotle and Plato explained what happened. You have a dictatorship and of an oligarchy, but then some oligarchs are fighting with other oligarchs, mainly the less successful members of the oligarchic families, decide to, as Aristotle put it, take the public into their camp and represent a populist policy. They create a democracy to replace the oligarchy. But democracies tend to evolve into an oligarchy again. The oligarchy overplays its oppressive power, and a new reformer comes, and it's an eternal political triangle from dictatorship, an aristocracy, to democracy, to an oligarchy, to the oligarchy making itself hereditary and then being overthrown. So you could say that the role of populist politics is to overthrow the hereditary oligarchy that is in the form of an aristocracy. Well, America now is just in the process of making its oligarchy hereditary by the abolition of the inheritance tax, by all of Trump's activities. And so we're far away. We're not even in the totalitarian state that creates the reaction of they were called tyrants in Corinth, in Sparta, and later even in Athens. We're not anywhere near that yet, but someday there will be a populist policy in the Plato, Aristotle, Greek style that challenges the vested interests. We're not that happening. All we can have is the degeneration of democracy into demagogy.